Hello and welcome to the first chapter of a series of tutorials I'm putting together for Auburn Industrial Design Class 5960 and 6960. The series of tutorials I'm putting together are intended for the novice user of any 3D application or game engine. I am putting these together to help build a foundation for the students so that they might be able to use this software to prototype games, architecture, environments, exhibits, what have you. All right, so with that being said, let's get started. Once you have Unreal installed, and there's another tutorial video regarding setting up everything for Unreal. Assuming you have everything installed and ready to go, you launch it and this is what you're going to see. This is Epic's demo scene that they've constructed to give you an idea of what they're capable of with just a few simple shapes. All right, so we have it open. What next? Well, before we dismiss this scene and start working on our own work, really need to get used to the control scheme in the software. It's a little different than what you might have used in the past in other 3D applications. So let's grab the mouse, click and hold the right mouse button, move the mouse back and forth, and you will be pivoting the camera back and forth so you can look around the scene. I'll try and not make you too nauseous here. All right, so that's great, but now we want to move around. So if we want to dolly left, dolly right, click the left and the right button at the same time and hold them. Dolly left, dolly right. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Now, if you want to zoom in and out, you're going to hold the left button alone. No right button this time. Move it in, move it out. We're now zooming in and out. So once you get used to this, you should be able to navigate a 3D scene pretty easily. All right. So now we're moving the camera. Now, selecting something in the scene is exactly what you'd expect. You click it. So all the objects and actors in the scene are clickable. So we've selected the ground there, even though I intended to select a player start. Let's give this another shot. So there's our player start. We've selected it. Now, to zoom in, hit the home key on your keyboard. All right, we're about back to where we started. So I suggest you give that a few moments, let that movement kind of sink in, and then we can get started with actually constructing a scene of our own. I almost forgot one of the, maybe not super new, but newer features of Unreal is there's an alternate movement scheme for the camera. While you're holding that right mouse button down, you can use the A, S, W, and D keys to move around your scene. So if you're used to playing PC games where you are, a first-person shooter or whatever, and you're used to using A, S, W, and D, then this might be very helpful for you. All right, so with that said, we now want to start constructing something of our own. All right, so up here in the top left, hit File, New, and Unreal is going to ask us, what do we want to start with? For this tutorial, we're going to start with a blank map down the bottom left there. Instead, we are going to open the good old generic browser here. I'm sorry, content browser. I believe it changed names somewhere along the line. So once you open this, you will see a whole bunch of icons for different stuff. In here, this is basically a navigation tool for a whole lot of zipped up files that within them have models, textures, shaders, simple scripts, everything necessary to deliver a game. Well, not everything, but the content you need for delivering a game. So, assuming you have already downloaded the content packs that I provided on the site to go with this tutorial and have placed them in the correct directory, you should find in here, underneath content, a folder called IND 5960. All right, so this is the package I will be updating throughout the course with new textures, new models, and new tutorial guides and tutorial sort of scripting samples and lighting samples. So this is not a package that you will want to save any of your own work into, and because I'll be updating it as we move through the semester. What we want to do now is, while we're looking at this package, we're going to see where it's living. All right, UDK, content, IND, 5960, packages. And underneath here, we have materials, shapes, and textures. This is just a simple folder nesting scheme within Unreal for organizing your stuff. All we really care about for today is shapes, because what we're going to do with this tutorial is take simple shapes, lay them out, place a light to get a interesting looking scene, and then drop into the scene and walk around. The entire goal with this tutorial is to get familiar with just simple scene construction. All right, so with that said, I am going to start with my box here. All right, so we select the box, drag it into the world. Bip. All right, we now have a box, but we can't see it. Where's the box? Got to move the camera around till I get it in frame. All right, before we move any further with this box, we need to discuss how this viewport works a little bit. So by default, I am in unlit mode. If you look up here to the upper left, you'll see a whole bunch of cubes. These are all telling you the different ways that Unreal can display this viewport. So unlit means I am showing you the artwork that you dropped into the scene without any shader-based lighting or baked lighting. So no effects going on here. You move over one to the left and you've got a wireframe. So this is very useful for dense scenes, for manipulating, moving things around. This button that's even further over to the left, you will not have to worry about too much. This is for, again, moving and editing BSP. So we live really between this world right here with unlit, and then later on in the demo, over here with lit. Now when I click lit, everything's black. That's clearly because we don't have any lights in the scene. For right now, all we care about is simple composition. So we have a block in the scene, and we want to start building the world. Now this grid is a pretty handy thing. It's there to help you line up all of the assets that you're dragging into the world, and to help you get a sense of scale and to assemble your scene neatly. So right now we have a square just floating out in the middle of nowhere, which isn't particularly helpful. We want to put him at the origin of the scene, at 0, 0, 0. We're going to do that by hitting F4. F4 brings up the properties. I believe you can also double click it these days. There we go. We have the properties, and we won't dig too deeply into the properties during this semester. For right now, we do care about movement, and then we care about location, and we want these random numbers to be 0. All right, so We are now constructing our scene in the center of the world. Makes life a lot nicer. All right, but my box is really far away. That's where the home key comes in handy. We'll zoom right in there. All right, so this world isn't particularly interesting with a single 2-foot by 2-foot box. I'm going to scale this box out and use it as a platform, just sort of a floor for our little map that we're going to construct in this demo. So just to be clear here, in game development, this is not the way you would construct a world, but for the sake of a simple demo, we are going to stretch a bunch of untextured meshes. In game development, if you're stretching these meshes out, you would ruin the textures. You would just stretch the textures out and kill the texel density. So for the sake of this demo and for the sake of simplicity, this is the way we're rolling for now. All right, so let's scale this guy. So basically what you're looking at is there's 4 of them. And the reason there's 4 of them is because the one to the furthest left is a shortcut of sorts for manipulating all 4 axes, X, Y, and Z. Hey, it's 4 times bigger. So put it back. Now in this case, say we want a floor that's, we just want a floor that's 20 foot by 20 foot for right now. And I told you we started with a 2-foot box. So I'm just going to multiply by 10 there, multiply by 10 there, and just so you really get the idea here, we don't want a 2-foot thick floor. We want a 6-inch thick floor, so 0.25. Okay, so had a lot of fun with the cube now. Let's get something a little more interesting in here. We're going to go back up here to the content browser button, and we're going to open that guy back up. If he doesn't open up immediately in front of you, it's probably because it's been minimized to the bottom left. So, all right, let's drag somebody in here to work with. All right, can't go wrong with a sphere. All right, so there's our sphere. Wireframe's great for just figuring out the relationships between different stuff. Now in this case, we want our sphere here to line up against the floor. Now, purely in perspective view here, that can be tough. So, if you go to the top right, and you see 2 little windows on top of one another, we're going to click that, and there we go. We have our 4 viewports. Top, front, and then, side, front, top, and then perspective. Now these viewports, you can make them whatever you want. This T right here is for top. You click it, now it's the front, side, perspective, back to top again. All right. So they're very handy for lining stuff up. We want this sphere in the middle of our scene, and we want it resting on the floor. So we are going to move it there. Now you might notice that the sphere is popping as I move it. That is because it is the grid units set for the scene are set to, in this case, 16. You can see this in the bottom right. There's a little grid, a 16 and a check mark. Now, a lot of what we do with world construction in games requires a significant degree of precision. The grid helps us make sure that when we place assets in the world that they snap together correctly. So in this case though, our grid is not fine enough for us to actually place our sphere on the floor. Our sphere is half a grid away from the floor. So we'll take this snap these units down to 8 and pop. Our sphere's on the floor now, and he's in the center of the scene, right above the origin. All right, so he's snapped in, looking pretty good. Let's go back to unlit. You know, I think it's time to start exploring our 3rd mode here, and that is lit mode. Now, since we have not added a light yet, lit mode isn't going to do us a lot of good. So let's go ahead and add that light. Lights get incredibly complex fast within this engine. For the sake of this tutorial, we're sticking to the most simplistic of lights in the engine. Maybe not in terms of the math behind them, but in terms of usage, they are the simplest. And that is a point light. Now, I place that point light by, let's get rid of it and do that again, by right-clicking in the scene on the floor. And when I right-click, it brings up this massive context menu. And in here, you will almost always find the Add Actor option. And under Add Actor, you will find the most frequently used actors for the engine. Now, these actors, the reason they're called actors is because they aren't necessarily art. They're not necessarily a 3D model. They are a asset that delivers some type of gameplay, in this case a light, or maybe a point at which somebody begins the level, or a point in the level that starts a script. These are things that make the gameplay experience work, but aren't necessarily a piece of art that you see in the world. So here we go. Add light point. Pop. All right. As soon as I added that, you'll notice that the engine went ahead and automatically moved us from unlit mode to lit mode. So let's get this all full screenified again. There we go. All right. So there we go. We have a very bright light here in our world. One of the demos later on in this semester will deal solely with lighting, and we'll dig much, much deeper into the lights. They're super fun to play with, but like I mentioned earlier, it can get tough in a hurry. All right, so now we have a light, and we have a simple, interesting scene. I think what we should cover for now in terms of the light is simply the radius, the intensity, and the color. It's as deep as we need to go. So I'm going to pop up the properties for this light. And again, that was by double-clicking the icon, by double-clicking this sprite that represents the light there. You can also just select it and hit F4. Now we're going to ignore all these other options. Let's just go straight for light, light component, and then under light component we are looking for point light component. There we go. We got a radius of 1,024 units. Now I'll provide some cheat sheets for the units within Unreal, but just keep in mind that we will be working in feet for this tutorial, and there are in this case we're using 16 Unreal units to each foot. So it keeps us on the grid. It keeps all the elements in the world on a power of 2. So for now we want a smaller light, 512. How about 256? Hey, that's looking pretty cool. So now we've got some mystery out there on the far corner. Now, we will worry about fall off exponent and shadow fall off later on. All we care about for right now is radius. And then, let's see. Okay, and then our next step here is brightness, otherwise known as intensity in software like 3D Studio or Maya. Now, let's say this light's a little bit too hot. How about 0.25? Oh boy, that just kind of took all the fun out of the scene, didn't it? All right. Let's just say we want to take the edge off it a little bit, so 0.9. And then right below it we have light color. All right, light color works the way you would hope it would. So let's say, I'll just give it a little bit of a blue. tint here. All right. So that's looking pretty cool for a square and a sphere. Now, it's important to point out that this is a game engine. So we've kind of missed the point if we're not actually interacting with the world and other than just viewing it through this viewport. So Unreal has featured for a while a feature where you can hop right into a simulation of the game at any point in time from within the editor. The simplest way to do that is by right-clicking in the scene on one of the surfaces, and it says right here, play level. Oops, excuse me, play from here is what I meant. We'll do play level later on once we start messing with the iOS devices. But for now, play from here. That's all we need. Click that. Uh-oh, everything's black. Okay, so the step that we need to take before we're going to get any lights in the scene to work for our game is we need to build lighting. The reason you have to click this button up here, the little light bulb, build lighting, is because at the end of the day, the lighting in many games, especially in this case a game that we intend to put on a iPhone or an iPad, the lighting is not real. It doesn't change. What we are going to do is build lighting, which basically creates textures and slaps them down on top of these surfaces so that you get a gradation. This texture's slapped down on top of the floor and on our sphere here, and it feels like lighting, but it isn't going to change if you walk through or if you were to move the light source around. It is literally, it's baked into the scene. All right, so let's bake it. Boom. Okay, if you get a message about the swarm agent, you can just allow access. What this is asking is if the software can use a networked render farm to build your lighting. In your case, it's not really much of an issue. All right. Oh no, our lighting doesn't look nearly as good. Now, the lighting, of course, is dependent on the texture resolution. I mean, on the resolution of the light map on these surfaces. So we'll have to up the light map resolution. We will bother with that later on, though. It's not we're not quite ready for that. Let's just jump in and run around. All right, here we are. Yay! So, like I said, the units are 16 units to a foot, and the assets that are in your base package are 2-foot assets. Now, keep in mind that the default play from here for Unreal features a over 8-foot tall character. So I'm living large here in this scene. If you're familiar with the Gears of War product and the suits the guys in Gears of War wear, and you know why this fella's standing 8 feet tall. All right, so now we're gonna jump back out of here by hitting the escape key. Let's hit a few more things. We have a scene, we've got a couple assets. We are interested in making the scene a little bit more interesting. We want to build something that you can actually explore. And with our floor space here, that isn't enough. It doesn't give you too much room to explore. So we can scale out our 20 by 20 foot floor here. You can also select it, hold the Alt key, and then while holding the Alt key, grab one of the handles on the manipulator for the floor, and then click a manipulator and drag it. So I'm holding the left mouse button, the Alt, and dragging this mesh all at the same time, and it will automatically create a duplicate for you. Alright, so now we have more floor. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and drag out another one. And we're going to make sure that those are all nicely seamed up. Okay, so we've duplicated those floor panels out. You can see the difference between the dynamic lighting I was mentioning earlier and then the baked-in lighting. So the lighting here is being calculated per pixel every frame. The lighting here is a texture slapped onto the surface. It looks like this because I haven't rebuilt the lighting for all the new assets in the scene. New assets being these floors I duplicated and placed in. Now, we haven't really talked about the gizmo tool too much other than moving stuff, translating it, and duplicating it. We also have scale and rotate to work with. So let's grab something that actually demonstrates rotate, like a pyramid. And drag that into the scene, drop them in. So now we have a pyramid in the scene, and let's say I want to make a shape of sorts, a maze from the top here. We're going to take a look at where we placed our pyramid. Drag them up close to our sphere here. Let's get this light out of the way. Alright, and I want the pyramid to be rotated on a 45. So I hit the spacebar once, and you now have a ring illustrating the angle that you're rotating your asset at. Alright, so like I said, we're hunting for 45. This is taking way too long to find 45. I'm going to go down here to where the grid settings are, and you'll see a tilde 6, meaning kind of sort of 6-ish degrees. So if you really want accurate rotation, you need to stick to 45. Anything below that, you're getting not complete math. But we can talk about that another time. So there we go. We've got this guy rotated at 45. I hit the spacebar a couple times to go back to move, and I've moved him to where I want him to sit. Let's say I want 4 of these guys. I'm going to hold down the Alt key. I'm going to grab this handle, drag him over here to get a duplicate. Then I'm going to do it again. Actually, if I were smart, I'd go ahead and select 2 of these by selecting top one, hold the control key, then selecting the bottom one. So by holding the control key, I was able to select both, then hold the Alt key and drag both of them over. Now I've got duplicates of both of them. So now we have rotated, translated, and duplicated these assets into a scene that we're kind of digging. All right, now the last of the tools that we haven't really covered. I'm going to go back to a full single viewport by hitting the square there. All right, is scale. So, like I mentioned earlier, in gaming, scale is something you're really careful with. But for the sake of this class and these tutorials, we will use scale. So, hit the spacebar twice, just so you can see me cycling through there, so that I now have scale. And I am going to grab a handle and drag it out. So we now have a sphere that is no longer 2 foot. It is 2 feet times 3.6139. So that looks about like what we wanted. What I'm going to do is go ahead and just say, you have 2 options here. You can set all of these to 4 to get a perfect 8-foot sphere, or make your life a little easier. Set all those back to 1, and then just take the master there and set it to 4. Alright, so we now have epic sphere time here to get our lighting back for everything. Let's bump the lighting quality up here to high. You can ignore the errors here for now. All right, so we have our floor. Yep. Clearly we are going to need more lights, but for right now, let's jump in. Right click on the floor, choose play from here. It drops me on the floor. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, to wrap this up, I think we're going to add a few more pieces of floor so we can run around a little more freely. Of course, since we're not really worried about scale, another option is just saying, all right, instead of 10, we want this guy to be 30 and 30. And we want them sitting there at 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to click this P here up in the top left and go to the top view and move him back to 0, 0, 0. We'll get rid of these other pieces. All right. Art directors throughout my industry are hating me right now for scaling all this stuff. But all right, so there we go. Big piece of floor, a couple assets placed, organized in the scene. We want a few more lights, or we want to make this one bigger, and then we'll add a few more. So now that our scene's bigger, we're realizing we want a little more light. Let's take this guy back up to 1024. 512. There we go. All right. And then let's say we want this light as our primary in the scene. Say over here. And we'll create a secondary light. Another light that is perhaps not quite as brilliant. And is a complement, subtle complement. All right. And there we go. All right. Let's build our lights one more time. All right, and drop into the scene. There we are. All right, so this is a good place to begin, just to kind of get your feet wet, figure out how to drag in a few simple assets, manipulate them, place them, drop into the game, check them out, get used to the run and walk controls, and just touch on the lighting just a tiny bit. At this point, we've got one last step, and that is File, Save As. Now, for this class, you will want to save underneath the, it'll automatically dump you into the content maps directory, and you can just drop your map right here for now. So we're going to call this INDD 5960 demo map. And we'll be updating this map throughout the course. All right, so with that, you should have more than enough to be dangerous and real with. So enjoy.